Hey, this is Guido coming at you with a tactics talk. I am going to do my first tank review, and it is going to be of this Swedish Emil 1 Tier 8 heavy tank. You can see it right here in my garage. So we'll go to the tech tree and take a look at the line itself. Now it's in the mixed line, which is a little bit odd because you've got lights down here till Tier 3, you've got mediums at 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then you have a heavy at 8, 9, and 10. And what that is going to do to you is make your crew management a nightmare. So you're going to spend some gold, or you're going to have multiple crews. There's lots of ways to do it, and that's beyond the scope, but just know that when you go down this line, you are going to have to futz around with crew. So as far as how I did it, I free XP'd, you can see, through the T2, the 3, and the 4, and I started playing on the 5, which is a tier I basically like to play that and above. I will eventually get back to the 2, 3, and 4, but I have not played them. So I went to the Sturv, then to the Sturv 74, and then to the Leo, and now I am at the Emil, and so I had to spend a little bit of gold. Also, we will go back to the garage, and you will see that up here on the left, I have used my Swedish reward crews from the missions over Christmas, and I have 3 of them in the tank. Realize that the Leo and the tanks below have 4 crew members. And once you get to the heavies, they have 3 crew members, so you're dropping a crew member out. I actually have 2 of my other Swedish females in my Uds in the TD side. Of course, that breaks Sisterhood of Steel. So looking here, you can see that Cecilia here, Sisterhood of Steel, 6 cents in recon. Then we have Sisterhood of Steel, snapshot and repairs, pretty standard for a gunner. And then the driver is Sisterhood of Steel, clutch braking and smooth ride. I have clutch braking because the turret turns so slowly. We'll talk about that a little while later. And I would imagine a lot of people would probably take repairs before that, and that is not a bad idea. You can take a look at the rest of my loadout. I have everything maxed. I won't go through all of those. I am carrying here the enhanced gun laying drive. I have a vert stab, and I have the improved vents class 3. I have 2 clips of APCR, that's gold rounds. I've got 40 rounds of the regular APCR and then 4 HE on there, and I'm carrying a small repair kit, a small med kit, and I carry on nearly every tank I own an automatic fire extinguisher. And we can get into that at some other point why I do that, but I think a lot of people do it. And that is basically what I have for the tank loadout. So let's do a little comparison here. I've got this set up between the Emil 1 and the AMX 5100, which is a very similar tank in playstyle with a few exceptions. So you can see the firepower number, that's Wargaming's little stat, fairly close. The damage, 240 to 400 on the Emil, 225 to 375, so slightly higher than the 5100. The penetration is a little bit lower, but not enough to make a huge difference. It's 212 with the standard round. It gets higher with the gold round. That being said, 212, while it's not bad, is not great either, so you do have to be careful with the standard AP round where you're aiming. Rate of fire is pretty close. The reload times are down here on the load, 32.56 and then 48.61. But realize with the Emil you get 4 rounds right here in the clip, and with the 5100 you've got 6 rounds, which changes things a little bit. But you will also realize that the damage per minute is higher with the Emil than it is with the 5100. Their little survivability number, oh, I missed one thing that's extremely important, gun depression. So there's one of the biggest differences between the 2 tanks. So far, pretty similar. I would say 6 in the clip to 4 in the clip is fairly significant, but realize that the Emil has that amazing minus 12 degrees gun depression and 15 elevation, and that is a lot more, double what the 5100 has, and that is extremely important to how this tank plays differently than the 5100. So getting down here, hit points are the same. Whole armor is roughly equivalent between the 2, but when you get to the turret armor, you'll notice that the Emil's got that 180, plus it is highly sloped on the turret. That is an amazing amount of armor on the turret, and it can bounce a bunch of shots off the turret. The 5100 is simply not going to do that. Why is that important? Because when you pop out, if you are hull down, you can in the Emil fairly safely sit there, take your shots, reload, and take your next shot. Speaking of that, between shots in the clip is 3 seconds for the Emil and 2.73 for the 5100. But with that turret, you are able to go hull down and take your time a little bit. You weight, you can see the 5100 weighs more, the Emil is a lot less. In fact, the Emil is a very small tank. I am unsure if the modeling is correct, but if you look at it in the game, it actually looks smaller than a Type 59, so it is a very small, heavy tank. And then that gets us to the engine power. The 5100 seems a little more sprightly, although the top speed is roughly the same, and that is due to the engine power. The 5100 will get up and start moving a lot better than the Emil, and its turret traverse is a lot better. You can see the maximum speed is roughly the same as I said. Traverse speed, that's for the tracks itself, not for the turret. And then we get down in here to concealment, roughly the same, no big deal there, and a little bit better spotting on the 5100. So overall, the Emil's got a slower traversing turret. It's got a lot better turret, so it actually has hold down capability. And while it is as fast as the 5100 top speed, it doesn't get there as fast, and it is not as maneuverable because of the power to weight with the 850 horsepower on the 5100 versus the 380, even though it's lighter on the Emil 1. And then of course the depression is a big deal, so that is the big differences in the comparisons. Let's take a look at my stats so far before we go on to a game, an ace tanker that I had in this recently. So far I have got about 110,000 experience in it. To move on to the next one's about 164, 165. Small sample size at 43 battles, 72% victories. That will probably average out closer to a 60, I would imagine, based on my skill level, and surviving 53% based on a 72% victory. So that will average out and get lower as well. So far on the hits, and I attribute that to the ability of it to go hold down and take its time aiming, 82% on hits, which is higher than my average. Damage ratio, destruction, armor use, all pretty good. Again, small sample size. Experience is well above my even best tank. I expect that to average out a little bit as well. And then the damage is decently high, not amazing, only at 98.2%. So there are some people out there really laying out some damage in this thing. It is a pretty good tank. Damage received, cause, all this other stuff is fairly average, nothing amazing. And I do have one 8-kill battle in the 43 that I have done. So those are the basics of the tank. There it is again. Not a bad looking tank, but you can see where that depression is really good right there. And we will move on at this point to an ace tanker battle I had, and we'll see how this thing fights. It's on Himmelsdorf, so you can imagine I'm able to use my hold down capability pretty good. Alright, here we are on Himmelsdorf loading in. You can tell by the two teams. I've got a better team overall, but the tanks are fairly equivalent. I don't see any major advantages. You will note that there is no arty, and I'll talk about why that's important in just a minute. I am heading immediately up the hill. It's Himmelsdorf Encounter, so you can imagine, if you know anything about Encounter and tanks with depression, I'm going to go right for this little spot right here and try to own that little corner, that rubble corner up there, and take as many shots as possible bouncing with my turret. So this is the perfect spot for this tank. Tanks like the T-28 and T-34 also do well here. Show you what I'm doing with my gun. I've just loaded, so it's quite a long reload. And I'm able to just sit here for two reasons. One, I've got that turret, and two, there's no arty. Stop it really quickly here. Arty will sometimes sit in this corner, and they can nail you right where I am. So just be aware that if there was arty in this game, I might be moving around a little bit more. It isn't easy to hit me there, but it can be done. I'll take a shot. That's a bad shot. The low's got that buff a little bit better. I did not notice that my gun was damaged in game. I was so busy trying to aim. And it actually ends up being a good thing that I'm a bit of a buffoon right here. I'm going to take those shots, and you can tell now how I'm able to just sit here loading in. And you'll notice that what happened is my gun actually got destroyed, so that when I fixed it, it brought it back to 100%, as opposed to using my repair kit on just a damaged gun and then getting the gun hit again. So that was very lucky right there. Sometimes being stupid is okay. Alright, so now we've got the KV-4 coming up. again, I'm able to just aim in. I'm not too worried about my turret getting pinned. I can just take shots on this guy. That guy actually shot into my mantlet down below my gun and put one right through me. So it's not impenetrable. If you've got a guy who knows what he's doing or just plain gets lucky, they may hit you in that one soft spot. And you can see the long reload. I'm backing off right there. Taking a look at the guys that are up on the top, we have two fairly even forces contending for the hill, and we have a fairly significant force pushing down into Tank Alley. I do have to watch the guys to my left, because if they get into that little area right over there and start shooting me in the side, my whole turret hold down trick is no longer working. I ended up tracking the low, trying to get a quick snap on him. You'll notice that I'm continually checking over to the left, but I have enough guys of my own over there, enough teammates taking care of it. I don't want to push up and over right now because I don't want to expose my hull. I also have to be careful about turning my turret like I did right there, because then I give people side shots. But here they are coming in exactly where I was concerned with. Take a couple shots on him, and another shot is eaten by spaced armor. Trying to get up under there, and I'll just back out. And the reason I back here is, again, because if that T-26E5 gets down in that little depression there, he could tear me up. He can come up and over, shoot into my hull, which is very soft, and my big bad turret is not doing anything for me. So I'm reloading, waiting, biding my time. Now I'm going to come up in here and try to take on this Patriot. I make a mistake. I should have cut to the right and used that T10 as armor. What I do is cut left, and now I have a really bad angle on this Patriot right here, and I'm trying to shoot him in the side here. I don't really have a good shot, so I'll switch over to his hatch. I get one in there, and then I'm unable to finish him with the next two shots. They both bounce. So had I cut up to the right, I would have had a much better shot down on his flatter upper hole, and I may have gone through him. Because I'd already used my gold earlier on some of those hard targets, I was running with my 212 pin. So I'll cruise up here, I'll be reloading, and I'm waiting to take on the low. If I'd had it to do again, I wouldn't have got close enough to proxy light myself on the low. He may have decided it was worth coming around and taking a shot on me. You see he shoots on the scent, so I'm actually just going to push in, because I know by the time I get around and get ready to shoot, I will have been reloaded, and I'm able to help these guys take them down. Now I'm going to do something here that's important with an autoloader. I checked that KV-13. He's not worth my time because we have plenty of tanks back there. And you will see that I just forced a reload. For those who don't know, that's pressing the button C. That will force a reload, save the rounds that are already in the clip, so you don't waste them by shooting them into a wall, which I see quite a bit. And I am forcing the reload because I know it's going to take me a while to get to the rest of the tanks. I see that Comet is trolling around. I also know that T-25AT was last seen in this general area, so I don't want to come blitzing around the corner and just eat a shot for no reason. Here comes the Comet. I know I'm going to reload about time, so I stop, let my shot zoom in a little bit. Oh, of course I tracked him for no damage, and it takes two shots to kill him. So I am going to force another reload. Rather than go into the fight with two rounds, I know it's another drive, so I will go ahead, force that reload, and come on in here. Now I know the T-25AT and probably the T-54E1 and maybe even the Uds is over here, and there's that T-54E1, so I'll crank to the left. I don't want to go blitzing in unless he does something like that and back out, because I didn't have any shots to give him. T-54 is really not something I can hit. He's behind a bunch of stuff, plus that fountain in the middle is in the way. I'm really intent on this 54, and I don't even think about the T-25 who ends up getting me right there. Good news is we take him out. And now we're fighting along here, trying to deal with these guys. He takes a shot. Again, I don't want to go around that corner because if he's loaded, he'll be eating me up. Now he's worried about that guy, so we go out together. Nice job on his part, pushing in there and eating the shot so I can take down the 5041. And that preserves the Tier 8 autoloader for more fighting. Now I don't go across because I'm worried the 44 and the 54 will be both looking down that road. I see where the 44 is, and I don't know where that 54 is. And initially I didn't want to come blazing at him, but now that the Tortoise is crossing, I go with him. And I'm still on a reload. So again, I don't want to come around the corner necessarily right now. There's the Uds. The problem with the Uds right there is he's going to have a devil of a time coming around the corner if he's in siege mode because he's so slow. And if he comes around not in siege mode, he has terrible gun accuracy. So he's in real trouble right there. Here comes the 54. I'll wait for him. I'm reloaded to let him have one. Can't quite get the inner clip going to take him out, and so I see the 44. So target of opportunity. I don't really ever get enamored of one tank or the other. I really just look for the shots I can get. If it makes sense to go after a certain tank, I will. The 54 runs off, and it looks like he's after the SPIC, and I'm on a reload anyway. So I'm going to go over this way. It looked like the Udes was maybe trying to come around and shoot me, so I'll use this building as a bit of cover. Plus I've got this big bad tortoise right with me. I'm going to help him go around, see if we can take him out, but he finds a corner of that guy and eats him up. And now we're down to the T-54. I will see the T-54 chasing the SPIC. I stop, I back up in case that 54 comes across that little open area right there. I'll be able to shoot. When I zoom back out, I'm trying to find where he is, and I notice that he has changed direction. He has figured it is smart, and it is not smart, or it is smart to not go across there. Another tracking shot for no damage, and I'm able to finish him off with my last shot right there. So there's a good example of the Emil 1 and Ace tanker on Himmelsdorf encounter. So I start out at the top using that great depression, that amazing turret, and working that top hill area. Once we start to clean them out, I push up. I help them clean out the rest of the tanks that are up there. Once it is safer for me to get my hole out in the open like I did. A couple examples of forcing a reload and when to do it. Come down and kind of clean up tanks as we move along, just gobbling them up with that auto loader, and then a little bit of end game work to make sure that we track down all those mediums and guys that are hiding out down by the cap. So as far as my review goes, I would say this thing is pretty much a 9 out of 10. It is a pretty amazing Tier 8 tank. You have to take into account that it is an autoloader, so that those do cause you to use a little bit different tactics in a lot of cases. But as long as you can preserve your ability to reload without getting jumped, and the fact that this thing has the turret that it does over the 5100, I would say that it is much better overall than the 5100. Even if the 5100 has 6 shots and a little bit better maneuverability, I would say the Emil kind of trumps it, and I would give the 5100 about an 8 of 10, and this bad boy is about a 9 of 10. Pretty good tank, definitely worth the grind, and I'll review the ones below it, which are not nearly as good at some other time. I hope this helps. Take care.